What's up, everybody? I hope everyone is having an amazing evening. I'm here with my co-host Brad and a very special guest on tonight's show. We have Kevin Wright, contributor of CardChronicle. Kevin, thank you so much for coming on this evening. I greatly
Hey, thanks for
appreciate it.
having me. I'm happy
Appreciate
to be here and definitely happy to be chatting up with you guys. I'm just glad college football is back, glad it's
Definitely.
here. So,
Absolutely, man. We love college football, man. I think
yeah,
it brings people together, and man, nothing beats one of my favorite childhood moments was going to college football games with my father, man. So I
absolutely.
completely get it, man. Maybe for you, basketball really is the pet peeve of Louisville, but man,
Yeah,
I love
we're
college football.
definitely a basketball heavy town and school for sure, but football's definitely had its moments as well. So.
Absolutely. And Kevin, man, let's talk about the big game. College game day is going to be in Louisville. The primetime matchup, Miami
Yep.
versus Louisville. What are some of your thoughts going into this game?
Well, this is a big game, I think, for both schools for lots of reasons. First and foremost, it's both schools' first conference game this year. Now I know that as we're doing this, the Big Ten and Pac-12 aren't actually playing. So when you look at the AP poll, for instance, it's not going to include those teams. With that being said, going into this game, Miami and Louisville are ranked 17 and 18 respectively in the AP poll. And like you just mentioned, with everything that's in town, there's going to be a lot more eyes on this game in terms of the build-up and the pregame hype. I was looking I actually went back and watched Miami's game, the replay against UAB, and I came away pretty impressed. But what interests me most about Miami is probably their quarterback situation. I know, De'Aaron King transferring from Houston. He's a really good player, but he's going to present a very unique challenge for Louisville. I think if you look on the defensive side of the ball, which is probably the weaker side of the ball for Louisville, they really have struggled over the past year. In this last game they just played with quarterbacks that have the innate ability to get out of the pocket and move around. And King obviously is one of those guys who can get out of the pocket and run. He's very athletic. That's the first thing in looking at this game that kind of popped up to me. And then the other thing, I know there's been some recent changes with Miami. I know just probably within the last 24 hours, I saw where one of their cornerbacks had stepped away from the program, and which was kind of a weird time to do so. But, everyone has their reasons. But the reason I bring that up is because, Louisville's bread and butter is probably their offense and passing game. And so it's going to be very interesting to see how Miami defends Louisville. Louisville does like to run the ball. With that being said, they're a big play offense, and so they're going to look to score points off their passing game.
We lost them
just as much. I'll tell you another thing that really interests me about this game that I think could cause Louisville problems. I mentioned De'Aaron King and how he's able to get out of the pocket and move around. But after watching them play UAB, I was really impressed with how quick they get up on the ball offensively. They've got really fast tempo. That's something else that in the past year has caused Louisville problems, mainly because Louisville just doesn't have a lot of depth defensively, especially up front. They're very thin in terms of backup players, and so the guys they put on the field are playing a lot of snaps. And so when I watch Miami play offensively, it does give me some concern in terms of how fast they move. And then last but not least, Miami's running game obviously is important to them. It's going to be really interesting to me to see how Louisville does against that. They're coming off a game against Western Kentucky, and Western, not being a Power 5 school, but being a Conference USA school, has a good offense, but they were able to move the ball pretty effectively on Louisville at times. So that is one more thing that just sort of catches my eye and causes me some concern.
For sure, Kevin. And you talk about things that catches your eye. And when I look at a team like Louisville, the first thing that catches my eye is you guys are a very well-coached team as far as the outside running ability. You guys are probably one of the best teams in the country when it comes to the outside zone read. As far as running the football, you look at a guy like Malik Cunningham. He had 8 games last year where he had over 100 rushing yards. And if you go based off the first game you guys just played against Western Kentucky, you guys put up a lot of numbers, especially through the air, and he didn't have to run the ball. I think he only had about 27 rushing yards. So that something like that stands out pretty big to me. But you went into detail about how they like to sling the ball and how they are a big deep threat offensive team. And I think that could be something that could benefit this Miami Hurricane football team. You look at a team like UAB first week. They had a very good game plan. They knew that our strength was the pass rush. So they made sure that the quarterback got the ball off very quickly within three seconds almost every play. So that's why you didn't see too many sacks or turnovers on our defense. So now when I look at a team like Louisville, I think the trenches is going to be a very key component to this football game on both sides. You look at your offensive line to our D line. You talked about the big game plays you guys use with guys like Tutu Atwell, Braden Smith, and you guys have phenomenal receivers all over the field. But it's going to take some time for Cunningham to throw that ball deep, and I think that's where hopefully Miami could execute, because that's just a couple more seconds that we're not used to getting off of the first week. And then you look at the opposite side, your defensive line sticks out to me. They're very fast, very slim, but there was only one guy out of the 8 guys that are in rotation at D-line that are over 290 pounds.
Right, yeah.
Something like that stands out to me, because our offensive line for once in a lifetime is finally stout, big. We actually are starting to look like that SEC type of offensive line. We're not there yet, but I think with our new offensive scheme, we're putting our guys in the right position at the right time. So something like the trenches definitely sticks out to me. What is your the question I have for you is, you mentioned earlier that Louisville struggles with a running quarterback. They had a little bit of dose with Western Kentucky quarterback Pigram, who is pretty fast. He's not De'Aaron King, but he does bring some stuff that De'Aaron King does. Well, what is the game plan that you think Louisville's defense will use on a guy like De'Aaron King?
Well, I think probably what you'll see is Louisville will use either a safety or something comparable to that to spy on him, to try to keep him in the box as much as possible. I think in general, though, what Louisville wants to do, aside from keeping King kind of in that pocket, is they want to load the box in general and force him to throw the ball. At that point, obviously, it comes down to Miami's wide receivers versus Louisville's secondary. It looks like Miami has good athleticism at the receiver slot. Now, I know they didn't complete a lot of passes against UAB, but sometimes you don't have to beat people. You can just run it down their throats. So that'll be interesting for me to see is does anyone on Miami's team from a wide receiver standpoint, does anybody, step up and make some big plays? I know their leading receiver against UAB, I think, had 3 catches. But again, you beat people how you beat people. You don't necessarily have to have a boatload of catches if you're still beating people by 2 and 3 touchdowns. So,
for sure.
But I think they'll probably want to spy him. And like I said, try to keep him as close to the line of scrimmage as possible, because as you just mentioned, once he does get past the line of scrimmage, he can be very dangerous and he can chew up a lot of yardage really quick. So I hope that answers your question.
No, absolutely.
And Kevin, you also, you real quick, you mentioned, Miami's defensive line. Obviously, I think, to me, aside from King, that's probably the strongest part of Miami's team, really, you've got Silvera, you've got Roche, you've got, I believe his name is Jalen Phillips. I remember Phillips coming out of high school being a big 5-star recruit. Those guys are really quick off the edge, and they're really good defensive linemen. Louisville's going to want to run the ball, and you mentioned out wide. They got a lot of team speed. They love to get guys like Javian Hawkins and Hassan Hall, and sometimes even Tutu Atwell. They like to get those guys in space because they're small and shifty and quick. So it's going to be interesting, too, to see how Miami tries to counter Louisville's speed, because they do have a lot of great speed up front. Louisville's not deep at offensive line. They basically play 6 guys total. So if they were to sustain any injury, God forbid, it could be something that's going to really hurt Louisville, to throw some guys out there with have very little experience in a game like this.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, as we just mentioned, defensive line is one of the stronger position units on the defense for Miami and as a team as a whole. What's the offensive line outlook for Louisville going into this season? Is that a weaker unit of the offense, or kind of just middle of the road, or maybe it's the strongest in your opinion? I don't.
Yeah. So when Scott Satterfield inherited this team, I think it was probably one of the weakest, if not the weakest, component of the entire team. Going into last year, they hired a guy named Dwayne Ledford from NC State, who's an excellent offensive lineman coach. He did a heck of a job at NC State. He came over, and you could see immediate improvement. I still don't think Louisville is where they want to be from an offensive lineman standpoint. Again, I think they're probably at best middle of the road. They have improved significantly, though, from the beginning of last season and up until this point on their blocking schemes. And the big thing for Louisville, too, in terms of their O-line play has been penalties. Last year, early on, a ton of penalties and just constantly playing, second and third and long because of false starts and things like that, or maybe just missed, assignments up front. But so far this year, they look better against Western. But again, Miami will be a different challenge. Obviously, the athleticism and the overall depth will definitely push those guys a lot harder than Western did.
Yeah, and you mentioned a coach like Satterfield. I mean, this is another great coach that Miami's going to have to go up against. We just went up against Coach Clark, who is also a phenomenal coach, and now we got to go up against Satterfield. Yeah. I looked at your Twitter earlier today, and I saw that his visor was going on sale on like eBay or something. like that. That's crazy. Like the guy's visor. I haven't heard someone's visor go on sale since Steve Spurrier. So that's so that's pretty awesome, man. But I mean. Yeah. Last year, we ended up winning 52-27. I think this year it's going to be a lot different. I expect Louisville to kind of change up the game plan and kind of out trick Miami. I expect a lot of outside zone running like they're used to doing. And I think instead of throwing it deep, because they're going to realize very quick that our D-line is just too quick for that to run. I think they're going to try and get all their receivers that are quick and fast in space, and they're going to do a lot of screens. They're going to end up making Miami play one-on-one tackling and kind of hope that we don't tackle well. And I mean, one missed tackle and any of those receivers on Louisville could take it the distance.
Yeah, that's a good point. Another player Louisville has that may factor in is they have a tight end who originally came to Louisville as a walk-on. His name's Marciante Ford. And he really blossomed late last year. He caught a couple of touchdowns late in the year. I think he may have caught a touchdown in their bowl game. But he's a guy that plays tight end, but he's actually more of a slot receiver type. He's very quick. He's another guy they'll probably try to use the middle of the field with to try to get him some open space to see if he can break an initial tackle or two. But you're exactly right. Louisville wants to get the ball in the hands of Atwell and Hawkins and some of these other wide receivers that they have to see if they can break that initial tackle and make a big play.
Kevin, over the years at Louisville, you've had a ton of quarterback success with Brian Brom, Lamar Jackson, Teddy Bridgewater. What makes Cunningham different from these other quarterbacks, and what are some of his flaws?
Well, I think the one thing that makes him a little different than Teddy and Brom is that he can get out. He is athletic. He can get out of the pocket, move around. People really thought Teddy Bridgewater was that, but Teddy Bridgewater actually was a pro-style quarterback who just liked to kind of hang in the pocket and hit receivers, as did Brian Brom. But I think Mikel's different. He's not Lamar Jackson. One of the biggest things he's had to go against, is Lamar Jackson was so good that any dual threat quarterback that follows him at Louisville, some people anyway, are probably going to expect, similar results. They have to remember that Lamar Jackson is sort of a once in a lifetime type player. But I think Mikel's a little different in that he is athletic and can throw. I think he appears to be extremely coachable. When he first took over the quarterback slot, you could definitely tell that he had a lot of rust. And he was having a hard time, picking up play calls and blitzes and that sort of thing. But by the end of last year, honestly, the guy was awesome. The biggest knock on Cunningham and the biggest thing that worries me about him, quite frankly, is his ability to stay healthy. Last year, there were more than 2 or 3 different games where he had to leave the game early for a variety of reasons. In fact, against Western Kentucky, they were running the ball out inside the last minute. And some would argue that they were just simply kind of trying to kill the clock because they had the ball inside the 5-yard line. But for some strange reason, they still ran a read option to the right, and Cunningham was tackled and sort of knocked into a little safety or security fence and came up limping. And I know the fan base had to be like, oh, no, here we go again, because there is a major dip at the quarterback position if he's not on the field. Louisville does have a couple of serviceable quarterbacks, but no one that can do what he can. So I think the fan base has wrapped their arms around him, and I think at this point they realize that he's his own player. He's not a Lamar Jackson Part 2 or anything like that. He's a guy that can make a decent deep throw, but he's also a guy that can, like I said, find holes in the defense and leave the pocket and kind of scramble around, kind of make plays happen as they go.
Definitely. A guy like Mikel, this is one of these quarterbacks that we're not going to see someone like him for a while throughout the season. I mean, he threw for 343 yards, 3 touchdowns. He also had a rushing touchdown. We talked about earlier how he had 8 games last season for 100 rushing yards or more, and the first game of the season against Western Kentucky, he only had to run for 27 rushing yards. Yep. So he didn't even get to benefit what he does great. And I mean, the sky's the limit for him. And like you said, he needs to stay healthy. And you talked about the offensive line depth as well. So, I mean, that's something that could be a concern for Louisville. But if there's any guy that could go in at quarterback and beat Miami, it's Tutu Atwell. A guy from Miami, a guy who used to play quarterback in Miami. Yep. So if there is one guy to replace Cunningham, if he does happen to go down, you got a kid like Tutu Atwell. I wouldn't be surprised or put it past him if he kind of just puts all the weight on his shoulders and say, hey, I'm gonna do this for Louisville and I'm gonna beat my hometown. But another kid I look for, we haven't mentioned him much, and that's Braden Smith. I think Braden Smith is a very underrated receiver. I think that's another kid to look out for. We mentioned earlier about Christian Williams, obviously leaving the football team. We're pretty much down to 4 or 5 bodies. 2 of those bodies never played college football before. We're kind of in the same similar situation than what we were last year with the first game of the season against the University of Florida. I think we only had 4 scholarship corners at that time as well. We did pretty well against them, but a team like Louisville, who already has a game under their belt, and they have plenty of weapons on the outside, it's going to be very interesting. I think it's going to come down to the wide receiver play of Louisville and the secondary of Miami. We have to tackle. I think that's one key component for both football teams is you got to be able to tackle. You look at this first week of college football for everybody. The fundamental things is what hurt a lot of football teams, just being able to get to fundamentals and being able to tackle and run the plays properly. We talked about it off air, but Louisville is one of the few football teams that actually were able to get up to 7 spring practices under their belt before the season started. Yep. Miami only had 3 or 4 compared to us, and not to mention everybody pretty much comes back on that Louisville team, whether it's the player or the coaching staff, where in Miami's case, we're going with a new quarterback, new offensive line coach, new OC, new pretty much everything on offense. So it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, I agree. You know, there's a lot of inside stories here too. Louisville, for whatever reason, really started to recruit. Well, I can tell you why, because there's talent from top to bottom inside the state of Florida. But Louisville, back in the early 2000s, really started to recruit the state of Florida very heavily. That has never trailed off. They have made a killing going down there, and a lot of it again is because there's just so much talent. You know, Lamar Jackson just being one player that they would have gone down and gotten in that area. But you're right. You know, Louisville has 17 players on their roster from the state of Florida, 5 of which are from the city of Miami, local high school. As you mentioned, Tutu Atwell, who played at Northwestern. Yep. So sometimes that factors into these types of games. Louisville went down to Miami last year and quite frankly, just got roasted. They did. I think, Miami could have scored on every possession at one point. If they had the ball another 5 times, it would have just been 5 more touchdowns. I know Jaron Williams didn't play all that well at the end of the year, but against Louisville, he looked like a Heisman candidate. And so I don't know if Louisville looks at that as a, hey, we came down to Miami last year and we absolutely got roasted. I don't know. You would hope they would carry some fire into this game after that happening. So you have to sometimes look at things like that. And I don't know with the COVID situation what impact that's going to have on Miami as far as their travel plans, but that could factor in. One thing that would have benefited Louisville clearly is that this is a home game. You're not going to have a sellout crowd like you normally would with Saturday night Miami coming into town and College game day. That's typically 50,000 plus guaranteed. But this obviously capacity there is going to be limited to about 12,000.
Okay. I was just about to ask you that. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, you still have fans there, but let's face it, that's not the same as 50, 60,000. And so that probably benefits Miami more than anyone because players, they play off of the crowd and the momentum a lot of times, and that the fans are an important part of the college game.
Yep.
Kevin, before we get into the score prediction, what are some keys to the game for Louisville to beat Miami?
Well, I think turnovers is going to be crucial.
Yes.
Louisville doesn't turn the ball over a whole lot. Last year they didn't, at least, and against Western they did pretty well. Javian Hawkins he rarely fumbles. He doesn't put the ball on the ground very often. Cunningham, he actually made a couple of throws against Western that, quite frankly, probably should have been picked off. So he was very fortunate that they weren't. One was, I think, dropped. The other, our receiver just cut in front of the DB and took it in for a touchdown. So I think that's going to be key for Louisville, is to not turn the ball over. I know that's important most any game. One other thing for Louisville that was really eye-opening in a bad way against Western Kentucky was their special teams play. And when I say that, I mean they're punting. They have a freshman punter. He dropped the snap of his first freshman punt, which ended up being a turnover.
Yes.
His second punt got blocked. Both of those occurred inside their own 5-yard line, which gifted Western 2 touchdowns. You can get away with that, with a team like Western maybe. You can't get away with that with a team like Miami. So if you spot them the ball inside the 5-yard line twice and give up 2 touchdowns that quick, that could be a problem for Louisville. And so I think turnovers, special teams play, and then guys just have to make plays. If Louisville's going to try to win as many games as they think they can this year, their playmakers just have to show up in those games, and that means Cunningham, Atwell, and of course Hawkins in the backfield. Those guys just have to make plays.
Kevin, you have no idea how nice it feels to be on the opposite side of hearing special teams being a problem as a Miami Hurricane fan, man. I mean, for the past couple of years, whether it's the kicking or the punting, we've been atrocious in that. And I mean, to finally be able to hear that from an opponent, I mean, it feels very relieving. I didn't think it would feel this great, but I mean, special teams is one of those things that just hurt us every single year. And I mean, we have 2 amazing guys at kicker and punter who are already up for awards for the year.
Right.
And I mean, that's something to definitely, I didn't realize that your punter was a true freshman. So that's very eye-opening.
Yeah, so as you know, you can win and lose games with special teams.
Definitely.
Happens every year. And so, but it's good to hear about Miami. I try to watch them as much as possible. I try to watch all ACC teams as much as possible, and and root for, especially if they're playing out of conference. I'm always a pro ACC guy. And you're right, I have seen Miami make a lot of flub ups in the past several years in special teams. It's one area that I think Scott Satterfield has looked at and said we have to improve, and we have to improve quickly. But he just had so many things to clean up from the Bobby Petrino era that I think that probably is just something that they're still working on. So I think Louisville will get better in those regards, but they lost their punter and their field goal kicker from last year, Mason King and Blanton Creaky, who were both very good players in their own right. So, but it doesn't change the fact that they have looked to be mistake-prone early on, and that just, if you're going to beat another ACC team, can't do that.
Before we go into predictions, Kevin, I have actually a question that just popped up. Is it safe to say that Louisville is one of those teams where obviously they rely on the big plays, scoring touchdowns, but if they happen to get into, let's say, field goal territory, are they one of those teams where they're more likely to go for it on 4th down than to rely on the kicking?
I think if you get, in considerable distance, and when I say that, probably anywhere between 40 to 45 and out. Now, that's not to say that Louisville's kicker can't make those kicks, but it wouldn't surprise me at all to see Scott Satterfield, lean on his offense and try to convert there to keep possession and try to actually punch it in for 6. Because I know we're going to our prediction here shortly, but I think points, just like in any game, I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think points are going to matter a lot on the offensive side. I do see the defenses making big plays on both sides, but I don't see them making enough to keep the other team from scoring.
For sure.
Kevin, before we head off, what's your score prediction? Saturday night primetime game.
Yeah, so Saturday night primetime game. I thought about this all day, and I'm not a homer. I call it the way I see it. I think this will be a very close game, and I just mentioned I think this will be a higher scoring game. I have it at 31-28 Louisville by a field goal. Don't get me wrong, if Miami were to fly into Louisville and beat Louisville, it would not surprise me at all. A lot of things can happen, so that's no disrespect to Miami whatsoever. But I think that Louisville being at home hopefully will make enough plays on the offensive end and do enough to hold down De'Aaron King enough and the running game to keep him out of the end zone no more than at least 4 times. So that's my prediction. How about you guys?
I got 38-17 Miami.
Wow. Damn, Brad.
Yes,
I got
do. I think we're gonna finally see this offense do some damage. I think we are gonna rely heavy on the run game still, just because of what I mentioned earlier. How out of 8 of your defensive linemen, only one guy's over 290 pounds. I think we're gonna use that ground and pound to our advantage, and I think we're gonna rely heavy on the run until it's time to make the plays where we need to be. I think the big plays were there against UAB. Unfortunately, Derek King just didn't put the ball where it needed to be. I think that this come around, I don't. A guy like Derek King, I have a lot of faith and confidence in. He's a senior. He's used to these type of moments. I don't think he makes the same mistakes twice, and I think we end up putting a few more touchdowns on the board.
Fair enough.
I got 41-31 Miami.
Okay.
It's going to come down to the turnover battle, like Kevin said. If Miami makes dumb plays like fumbling punt returns, or like Louisville did with their punter fumbling a dumb snap, then I can see Louisville winning. It's who's going to win the turnover battle. Ultimately, what kind of made me pick Miami at the end? Louisville has a hard time defending the run. Miami, that's their strongest game on the offensive side of the football, whether it's the quarterback or our running backs. You're going to see a name, Jalen Knighton. Look out for him. He's a true freshman. Even if he doesn't make noise Saturday night, just look out for him in the future. I think he's going to have a bright career at Miami. But ultimately, I would not be surprised if Louisville wins this football game. But they need to protect the football, take advantage of those big plays. I think they have a very fast, one of the better wide receiver cores in the nation, or one of the best in the ACC. I want to see if Miami can contain Cunningham with his running ability. If Cunningham runs for over 100 yards, has over 250 passing yards, I think Louisville wins the football game, and I will not be surprised if they do come out with the win Saturday night. That's my score prediction.
Cool. Man, Kevin. I tell you, I've enjoyed talking to you guys. I really have. I'm looking, like I said, I hope it's a very competitive game. I think it will be.
Absolutely.
I hope it's not a sloppy game full of penalties and turnovers. I hope both teams play well, and because I think both teams are very crucial to the ACC. Somebody at some point is going to have to step up and dethrone Clemson, and I think Miami and Louisville are two of just a small group of teams that can actually do that over a period of time. So I look to Miami to be better this year and every year going forward under Manny Diaz. And so I've enjoyed being on with you guys. Ask me anytime. I'd be happy to come back.
For sure. Appreciate it, Kevin. Thank
Kevin,
you.
You did a tremendous job, man.
Hey,
best of luck Saturday night, man.
Hey, good luck to you guys, too. All right. We'll take care.
All righty. See you. Kevin Wright, contributor of CardChronicle. I thought he did a very good job.
He was great. He was great.
I thought he did a very good job, and he was very fair. Like, he wasn't biased or anything. He called it how he saw it. So Kevin Wright, go check him out. CardChronicle, tremendous job. And in about 3 minutes, Roman Marciante from the Orange Bowl Boys. He also has his own YouTube channel.
Yes.
He calls himself student of the game. More of the master of the quarterback position, I would call him. He'll be joining us in 2 minutes. I cannot wait, Brad.
I can't either, man. We're in a small group chat with him and a few others, and he brings up the best points. I tweeted about it the other day, but there's nobody like him when it comes to bringing up the bigger points that you don't really think about. And a lot of these fans that kind of overhype over the first game of the season, you gotta take a step back and realize that what's up, Wholesome? You gotta take a step back and realize that we just played our first game of the season. Compared to all these other teams that played, we did very well. We had 330 yards on the ground. If you think about it, UAB last year played Tennessee, who didn't even have over 330 total yards.
And without further ado, Roman, welcome to the Scoop, my friend. Pleasure to have you on, man.
How's it going?
Good, man. By the way,
Scoop, Brad.
What's up?
If you haven't seen Roman's YouTube channel, he's doing a tremendous job. It's called Roman Marciante, the title of the YouTube channel. He calls himself the student of the game. Once again, like I said earlier, he is the master of the game, specifically the quarterback position. The guy makes Trent Dilfer look like a scrub. He should be leading the Elite 11 quarterback competition. I'm not even kidding, man. He's putting out great work. So go check him out. If you're missing out on it, you're really missing out on great content.
not only his personal YouTube channel regarding quarterback play and whatnot, but also he's part of the great Orange Bowl Boys, who's coming up to their 100th episode anniversary. So big ups to you guys for that. I can't wait to listen to it. You guys are doing amazing things. Always have been. Can't wait.
Yes, I see the thing. Ro look like he's coming here on a mission. Yes, I am. I'm on a mission. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the introduction. I'm always happy to join you guys, and I appreciate the warm wishes and the cool words. I'm happy to be here. Let's go.
Ro, what's first thoughts? Miami versus Louisville, man. What's first coming to your mind about this game? Very interesting matchup.
I was nervous. I think at the beginning of the year, this was a game that I potentially circled. And I was like, this is probably a loss, right? That was kind of fluke luck last year. It was Jared Williams' apex. It was his pinnacle, right? This is when he breaks the touchdown records. We go up over 50 points. We have this top of the mountain experience. We think we're going to go ahead, and then the wheels fell off after that. So I looked at it, but after going and really doing the last video and taking a look at the quarterback position, right? Looking at Cunningham versus King, I feel much confident. I do. I feel much confidence. I feel much better about this game than I did, when I first picked it, because, let's talk about this. He scored 343, or he had 343 passing yards, right? Mm-hmm. 100 of those probably were lucky, more lucky than good. And I'm not trying to knock the man. He's good. He's a good quarterback. I just think we stack up a little bit better. And then I have some concerns. Left tackle got burnt a lot of times on those videos. And that's one of the first things, like they say, if you're going to watch a team and you want to see how a team is and how a team's going to operate, all you got to do is look at the lines, right? Look at what they do defensively. Look at what they do offensive line. I know what ours did. We only got one sack, true. But then when they come out and they put the stat that they put 14 or 15, pressures on the quarterback, some tackles for a loss. I just think that Louisville has a propensity to hold the ball a little bit longer than UAB did. And their left tackle's kind of a sieve. And a lot of those 343 yards were just chunk luck. I'm feeling much better. I really, really am. I think this bodes well for the University of Miami. Cunningham also, Mikael Cunningham also has this propensity to put the ball in harm's way. And UAB didn't really do that. UAB was very sound with the football. They weren't loose. Right. The quarterback wasn't throwing balls in harm's way. Mikael Cunningham, he's going to let a couple go. He's going to take some shots, and he's going to put the ball in coverage. So I expect a couple sacks, more sacks than a week ago, and I expect the turnover chain to make its first ever debut in its new 3.0 format.
Absolutely, man. Like you just mentioned, Louisville relies on the big plays, which means they're going to have to hold the ball a few more seconds than what UAB did. We talked a little bit about UAB, and they stuck to a game plan, and they stuck to it well. I mean, shout out to Coach Clark. They knew that their quarterback in Tyler Johnston was very similar to Mikael. That when you put them in a situation where they have to throw the ball deep, they don't necessarily make the best decision every time. So what did they do? They made sure he got the ball out within 3 seconds every single time. So we had a lot of quarterback hurries. We just didn't have too many sacks. And what do you know with a team like Louisville? They're a team that relies heavy on the big plays. So like you just mentioned, the pass rush is going to be very important. We just had a guy on from Louisville as well who said that the offensive line depth is a very big concern for Louisville. And then you look at the opposite side of the trenches on Louisville. 8 out of 8 of the guys on D-line, only one guy is over 290 pounds. So I expect us to keep running the ball. I know a lot of Miami Hurricane fans are wanting that offense where we can just throw the ball deep downfield. But I don't know if we even have to do that again this week. I mean, we might throw a couple more plays, but what we did with UAB only running about 4 or 5 plays and putting over 330 yards on the ground, we're actually playing a defense that's not as good as UAB this week.
You know what? Thank you. You credit the UAB defense. I mean, they did something that they came out in a rare, different look. They'd only shown it like one play this year. Didn't really show it on film at all. Very seldom last year. So Miami was adjusting on the fly. And that's what I walked away. I'm like, you're adjusting to something you haven't seen. And then you turn around. Hey, let's stop. Like everybody's talking about the Louisville fireworks and the big play and the offensive line. Did you know that the University of Miami had more total offense than Louisville last week? They actually had more. Only Clemson ranked above us in terms of total offense. So while you're operating on 6 of 12 cylinders. We can all agree that Miami's offense at times was looking sluggish. It didn't look like it didn't create the big play in the passing game.
Right.
The ooh wow, we didn't have that in the passing game. But you know what? You literally, it was Bill Belichickian, right?
Yep.
You literally the UAB's strength was their rushing attack. Their UAB strength on defense was their rush defense. And what did you do? You rushed all over them and you kept them to 80 yards, which I don't care who you're playing. Keeping a team in modern college football to 80 yards rushing is impressive. I see it the same way. And yes, he's got some offensive line depth concerns. Back to Cunningham. I don't want to beat a dead stick, but like took a really bad sack in the end zone. I don't want to say this blasphemous because I can already hear the bees huzzing in the background. Mikael Cunningham kind of reminds me a lot of N'Kosi Perry, right? He's a guy that it can be dynamic. He's in the offense, but tell me if you've seen this from N'Kosi Perry. And I'm not taking a shot. I'm just saying I saw N'Kosi Perry take a really bad sack in the end zone last year against Georgia Tech, right? It was the same thing. Once I saw Mikael Cunningham do it last week, I'm like, oh, that N'Kosi did that last year. He threw on the day 55%, right? 55%. He didn't walk away with a lot of rush yards. He had that one rushing touchdown that's making the highlight reels, and they went like to a man concept. They try to bracket the number 2 receiver. He runs in for a score. Great, what have you. There's a couple balls he put in harm's way, but he's got this really good playmaking ability. He could put the ball on the money downfield. I'm like, I'm watching N'Kosi Perry here. So I think you're going to get really and I think for Miami Hurricane fans, and I think when I made my decision, who's the better quarterback here, D'Eriq King or Cunningham, I think that, the fact that we have a version of that quarterback on our quarterback roster as it is, I think that's what allowed me to say, well, that's the guy who beat out Perry. So I'm okay saying this week that D'Eriq King's the guy that's going to keep me up a little bit at night, because the one thing that didn't show up on the stat sheet, right? The one thing that, and I want everybody to take, he did not, D'Eriq King, this is who I'm talking about. He did not put a ball in harm's way.
Yes.
He didn't throw puck. And UAB was trying their best to do it. UAB was getting after it with some coverages post-snap, and I'm like, ooh, that's dirty. And D'Eriq King just did not bite. And that's what you get with like some senior leadership, guys who've seen enough film, guys who've seen coverages, guys who can trust their eyes. And like, you know what? I'm not going to put this in harm's way and live to fight another day. So I'm excited. But like I said, the more I'm talking to you, the more I'm listening. Man, I'm telling you, I'm liking Miami's chances more and more and more.
I will say though, Cunningham had 8 games last year with over 100 rushing yards. That's something that N'Kosi Perry has never done. So we do need to play the
bad system. Bad system. Yeah, when you're going, they had negative 22 rush yards combined between Jared Williams and N'Kosi Perry last year. When you add the 51 sacks in reverse, because you got to remember that's fine. I think in this system, could N'Kosi Perry be a guy that gets 100 yards rush? Of course. The last system, mind you, but I get, man, in terms of the quarterbacking and throwing, I'm like, I get a real big Kosi vibe from this kid.
I can see that.
Roman, a lot of fans, the last game, we did an outstanding job running the football. Passing wise, we weren't very efficient. Felt like we threw a lot of deep balls, not enough drags, slants. Do you think we're going to see the same offense against Louisville? Keep in mind, Louisville does not do a very good job defending the run. I think they gave up 7 or 8 10-plus yard runs.
That was the most out of every ACC team that played in week 1. They allowed the most 10-plus rushing.
Yeah, they amounted. So, all right, you put your thinking caps on. You're watching this film. The first thing you got to do, you got to stop the run, right? You have to. You can't let Miami do what they did last week. No matter who you are, if they played the same game plan, sluggish or not, your quarterback doesn't throw picks. You called me Trent Dilfer before. That's that's how you win. You just pound the ball. You throw for like a buck something, 60%. Don't throw a turnover. Let your defense and your run game win. Now, obviously, D'Eriq King's a lot more, dynamic athlete than Trent Dilfer ever will be or was. So in this case, that they're going to come out with a concerted effort to go ahead and stop the run. You have to just weather the storm early. They're probably going to run blitz. They're going to probably try to get you on some zone reads, get you behind the sticks, try to take that away. And yes, this is the week that I think all Canes fans can judge the Miami wide receivers, because you're going to have your opportunities. You're going to have It's going to be on you this week, because I know there's not a shadow of doubt in my mind that these guys are going to look at the run game and try to take chunks at it. They're going to have to. You can't let them run like they did. It was the second most total rushing yards we've had against an FBS opponent since 2004 and joining the ACC. And I mean, as sluggish as we were.
Fans were complaining about it. That's the crazy thing about it. They still left the game concerned about the offense. And I'm like, guys, we ran 4 or 5 plays. Why, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Just keep running the ball. And I mean, it's crazy.
That's the thing for all Miami fans with Rhett Lashlee. And I started preaching it early. I'm like, Rhett's the type of guy that's going to take what he gives you. And I said it inverse. I was like, listen, I actually was kind of like prepping him in the wrong direction. I said, you got to understand that the run game is going to involve a lot of bubble screens, because he's going to, if it's there, he'll take it. Well, against UAB, he's like, forget the bubbles. I'm running right down their throat. I mean, like, we're just going to run down the hash. We're just going to pound them 52 times in the run game. That's what it was. 52 out of 79 plays was in the run fashion. And that's what Rhett's going to do. So if Louisville comes up and they want to go ahead and try to take away the run, he's going to pass. So now this is the week we need to get somebody open in the pass game, make a couple big plays.
It's going to be one-on-one. They're gonna end up stacking the box, QB spy and De'Aaron King, and make us throw, and kind of rely on their secondary to our wide receivers. Well, they have a lot more faith in their corners, and they see our wide receivers off of 1 week. Obviously, the guy from Louisville just mentioned our leading receiver week 1 only had like 27 yards. So I mean, they're gonna think that, hey, these receivers can't really do much. We're going to see what De'Aaron King can do, if he could actually make those throws or not.
Yeah, you're going to have to. You're going to want to make De'Aaron King a passer this week, but I'm confident in that. I mean, you're not going to wholesale, just mitigate the rushing game for the University of Miami. It's the quad-headed attack, right? It's a hydra. It's a sea beast. I mean, there's every running back / quarterback for the Miami who was listed as a running in rushing yards had 6.5 carry average. 6.5. I mean, that's insane. That's like, and against a very formidable rushing defense. Like, come on, guys. It was like 20th and Clemson was 19th. Miami was like 18th. Like, you can't apples to apples. Oh, they play it's hard to stop the run no matter what conference you are. And it's apples to apples when you're playing talent. I can't give enough praise to UAB talent. I see it the same way, guys. They're going to, but you know what? And this is the other thing I'm getting exciting. Last time I saw Rhett Lashlee on primetime is when he played against Memphis. Now, they lost that game, but I'll tell you what.
His offense was phenomenal.
Rhett Lashlee was in his bag, right? Rhett Lashlee was in his bag. He was chunking them up really bad. By the way, that Memphis defensive coordinator followed him to Florida State. How are they doing right now? Anyway, so he chunked them up bad plays. So I think Rhett Lashlee's going to sense the enormous nature and Miami's in a prime position come prime time, in this kind of environment to make a statement. And I think they're going to make a statement, and it's going to come in the pass game too. It's going to watch. He's going to manufacture some things in the pass game. He can. I've seen him do it. They're going to get him, especially, you're going to get some man 1 looks. You might even get a man 0 look. You're going to get man looks. And guess what? You're going to get burnt. Yep. You're going to get burnt. And this is the only question I had. And we're going to find out who's the receiver who can be the separation monster. Who is our Porsche this year, right? Who's our Prochet? That's the guy we need. If we have it, you're not stopping.
Ro, you talk a lot. Oh, go ahead, Paul.
Oh, sorry about that. Roman, one thing I think a lot of fans want to see more is just utilize our tight ends more. Brevin Jordan, I think he had 3 receptions, averaged 17 yards each catch. Did you see, breaking down the game, did you see maybe our tight ends were implemented in the game plan, they just weren't getting looks? Or, we just went really run focus heavy? And do you think
I saw Brevin
more?
I think I saw Brevin Jordan make a ton of money last week.
Really? Okay.
I think he made a ton of money, because when you go by, and if you watch some of the breakdowns, and especially part 2 of the UAB series, when you came out in that really unique front, all of a sudden we were very, very content to go ahead and utilize our tight ends. Now, before we even get to Brevin, let me credit Will Mallory.
Blocking,
because Will Mallory on that Cam Harris long touchdown was one of the key blocks. Now, I watched that young man last year, and he was the focal point of missed blocks from me, and I didn't mean to do it. It just happened to be like the bullseye was on him from week to week. So when I saw him make that block, he did a phenomenal job. Now, Brevin on the other side, his blitz pickups were like, just a heady nature. He had just one thing in particular with Brevin. He had two individuals that were coming off his edge blitzing, and there's like a universal rule. You want to take the closest guy or the closest threat to the quarterback. But in this case, it was the faster threat was outside. He had enough athleticism, but was able to chip his guy, and it led to like a very successful play. It was like a slant at that point. But without Brev, that doesn't happen. Brev on Rooster, go back and watch that Rooster, and I saw a really cool clip where they made like Rooster disappear. Watch Brevin's block on that. Like, that's the thing that Miami fans, just be patient. When you don't see Brevin Jordan catching the ball, he is like really good at blocking. And when you put him out in space, he's taking guys with him. He's taking guys, you have to check him. You have to account for him. So in the second half, yes, he got some more looks as a pass catcher. That's the part that, like, for the most part, you expect your tight ends, especially when they're pass catching perimeter tight ends. We know that's part of his game. I'm just telling you, and I promise you, that young man made a lot of money week one just because of all the intangible things he was able to accomplish. So if he's not featured in a pass game, trust me when I say this, he's doing great work in other areas, and he absolutely did. So I want to credit both the tight ends in the blocking game because, last year I felt like that could have been a little bit of a weakness at times. It was definitely a strength week one against UAB.
Ro, we've been talking a lot about the offense, and now I want to kind of switch sides and talk about the defense. As we all know, the biggest disappointment on the defensive side was probably the cornerback play. So a guy like DJ Ivey was making a few bad plays. Christian Williams, who obviously just entered the transfer portal. Now we are down to pretty much four bodies. Two of those guys haven't even played college football before. What are your expectations on this secondary? And do you think, obviously, Cunningham is used to throwing the ball deep, but what I'm actually looking at is I am actually a little bit more worried if Louisville ends up deciding to switch the game plan and realize that, hey, our offensive line is not very deep and we're not going to be able to throw the ball deep. So let's get these receivers that are very fast, very quick with the ball in their hands. Let's throw a lot of screens and a lot of quick passes and make that one-on-one play and kind of hope that our corners and our safeties don't make that one-on-one tackle and they go the distance. What's your thoughts?
I think you articulated that very, very well. I mean, you go back to the year before was Tutu Atwell that just simply took like a drag route. And, when everybody had the angle on him, you don't necessarily need to go over the top to make big plays with these guys. I mean, if Miami's going to go ahead and commit to man coverage, then they need to commit to man coverage. And they need to be able to play man coverage a little bit better than they did a week ago, because that was the issue. And I think that's what the concern was. And I'm not saying this because this is Baker's words, not mine, but Baker flat out said the cornerbacks played average, so you were called out. You can't play average against this wide receiver trio that you're about to take.
And a certain coach thought average wasn't even the best word because he put in an emoji and we were all like, the chief of staff is even questioning the average word. So it could have been even worse than that.
Yeah, and I like that accountability aspect right there. We live sometimes with, like the participation generation. You don't want to upset people. And I appreciate it. I'm like, listen, it wasn't good enough. You need to get that. Let's be honest. And I have a feeling I know where this conversation is going. Let's just be honest. We're not recruiting at that position like we should be. Right. You go back to the year before, you basically had 4 scholarship cornerbacks because you had just lost Derek Smith to the portal and Nigel Bethel, right? So you just lost 2 guys, and you're going in, and Ivy was suspended, if I'm not mistaken. So you're going in there very shortchanged, and now you're back in a situation where once again you're losing somebody late prior to week 0, which was the week last was weird. And this week 1, after week 1, you lose a guy to the portal. You're like 1 injury away from devastation again. And your calling card needs to be like, my guys are just absolutely phenomenal on the field. And they were just average. And it bothers me because you're seeing the depth. You're seeing the depth reverse from when Al Golden was here, right? And I'm telling you right now, Florida State fans, and I know you're not watching, But you guys are hovering in the 20% blue chip. That's what we were under Golden. You want to know what springboarded your 7-0 against us? Was that recruiting. So if you don't pick up your recruiting, the 7-0 is going to reverse, and I'm calling it now. Anyway, but that's the one area where we're launch padding. But then you got to look at the 2021 class. We only got one cornerback committed.
Yes,
and there's only one. There's only one possibility.
Yes, and before I even jump into on the field, when you're limited on options, you got to make sure those options work. And they have a big challenge and a big test this week for me. They have a big challenge. And I see Anthony right at the bottom. What about Frierson in the CB depth? We shouldn't be talking about Frierson in the CB depth. That's the point. We shouldn't have to go to this option every year. It's the retention that I have an issue with. It's the overall recruiting at this position that I have an issue with. And now the one thing that was always solvent, and I was the biggest advocate and defender, was that they played really good on the field. Well, that didn't happen last week. And if you play like you played last week against UAB in the passing game, if they find you and they pick on you, it's going to be a long night for the secondary guys. And you know what? They have every chance to shine because I think this defensive line is going to go ahead and cover a multitude of sins, including their own. I think the defensive line can get after it. I think they're pissed. I think they were tired of hitting the quarterback when he got rid of the ball, using that FIU game plan. Let's get rid of it in 1 second. We're not going to let you beat me. So now these guys are going to pin their ears back and say, I know I can get sacks. And I think it could get ugly for up front against Louisville. But the same concerns I have for the Louisville offensive line, just like their pundit talked about, I have the same concerns on our back end. They need to get their head out of their ass.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the trenches are going to be the biggest opportunity for Miami to win this football game and blow them out on both sides. And then you mentioned a guy like Nigel Bethel. What I get frustrated at, it's not only the long list of big name guys that we miss out of our own backyard, but what about the guys we end up choosing over other guys that were wanted?
Right.
You mentioned Nigel Bethel. Nigel Bethel, we chose him over Asante Samuel Jr. Let's not forget that. And Nigel Bethel's not even on this football team. And you look at Asante Samuel, he might be the best corner on Florida State. I would take Asante Samuel in a heartbeat right now. So we got to be able to make the right decisions and get quality guys at depth and be able to keep them there, like Roman was saying.
Another thing too, Brad, Christian Williams, not to pick on him, but, out-of-state corner from SEC country. I think he's from Daphne, Alabama. He was a late addition to the class. Did he really even want to be a Miami Hurricane, or was it kind of like Alabama wasn't really interested in him anymore? And SEC programs such as Texas A&M, LSU, for example, he was going to be a late addition, probably wasn't going to get playing time. Miami was like, hey, you can start right away here. You had that opportunity. What's the mentality in an individual that doesn't want to play for a team going into week 2 of the season, where you don't gain or lose eligibility this year? You can just get experience and showcase your skills, even if you want to transfer for the next year. I just don't even get who are we recruiting in these kids as well, mentality wise. We shouldn't be bringing in that negative energy into the program. That's what Manny Diaz was saying all that last year about, hey, there's a culture problem in Miami. Well, it seems like it's still going on if you're still having these early transfers.
It's not right, Paul. It's not a good look whatsoever. And that was some of the defense too. A particular coach always gets people late. Well, that guy's no longer here. And you have to. While you were talking, Paul, all I kept thinking in my mind, the quote that kept playing behind my eyes over and over as you're talking, I'm like, Trajan Bandy wouldn't have done that. Trajan Bandy wouldn't have done that. Trajan Bandy wouldn't have done that. And It's that guy, that culture guy that you need to go ahead and put. I'm okay. I'm okay with some of these under the radar kids. But if you get some of those kids that are local that just, listen, you're recruiting the guy. I think you could have a good sense whether this guy is going to, is he going to stick around when he doesn't get his playing time? Is he going to keep continuing to battle, or is he going to bolt? And I think if you keep getting these bolt kids, we talked about Nigel, we talked about Christian, that's on you at a certain point, right? Am I wrong here? That's on you. You're recruiting these kids, and people want to say, well, it's these kids. You're the ones recruiting them. I think I have a good discernment of character where I could go ahead and sit down with a young man, or especially a quarterback, and I could be like, yeah, this kid's fair weathered, or this kid's in for the long haul. I think you could get a sense of that, and I think they need to do a better job, especially in this one area. And we're making no bones about it, right? Out of the kids that we got committed, 19 of 21 are from here, from down here. Just keep getting the cornerbacks from down here, please.
Exactly.
It's not hard. Like I'd have to look at the numbers, but I'm pretty sure between Broward, Dade, and Miami, you probably get like 4 Division I scholarship cornerbacks, right? That might be on the low side. And get 2 of those kids. Just get 2 or 3. Like, come on. I'm not even asking for the 5-star. And this is me personally too. And I don't want to beat this dead horse, but can you get at least 1 5-star corner one out of every 4 years? I'm not saying every year. Okay. I understand how hard that is when SEC bag country comes in. I get that. I'm not saying, it needs to be every year. 1 every 5 years, every 4.
The fact that
you got to have some kids that are really good and talented that really like Miami. You got to be able to seal their deal.
And there shouldn't be an excuse, Ro, because we're doing it at every other position. We're getting the guys at every other position
6 and 7.
After 6 and 7. So there's got to be a reason why. And unfortunately, we are now down to only the 4 corners. I want to ask you this before we get into score predictions, Ro. What on the situation with corner? We obviously know that they're going to have a lot of wide receivers thrown out there. We know that Al Blades and TJ Ivy are going to be the 1 and 2 guy. Do you see a guy like either Gilbert Frierson, Keontre Smith, or even a guy like Bubba Bolden sometimes going in to play corner on certain guys? Or are you confident in just the 4 guys with the 2 freshmen in Dunson and Clark?
No, I think you're going to have to get like your option A, because like with Dunson and Clark, all right, Clark's a freshman too. And I'm just tired of the Miami situation. I was so happy. I mean, go back to week 1. I was like, hey, this is probably the most upper class laden team that we've had. It's just like, there's no true starting freshman on this field. I mean, you get your running backs, mind you. Okay, that's fine, but they don't start. They're not starters, and the only 2 true sophomores is you got to go to the striker position. So I'm like really happy. So I don't really want to go to that right now. I don't, unless I want to get back to the situation where the University of Miami, you're only playing as a freshman if you're like a generational talent. Yep. You know what I'm saying? You got to be there in order to play here, and you got to be in it for the long haul, because I think that's what's going to build these championships, a potential championship run. So I would say yes, even though I'm not a fan of it, but you got some dynamic playmaking ability back there and coverage skills. I thought Keontre did really good in coverage. I mean, that was like he should have got a pick. Yep. And I was like, wow. Okay, young man. So you have some options back there with those DBs and safeties and all those kids, in high school, they're like, hey, go lock up this kid real quick. And they have the capability of doing it. So I would say option A before option B and going with the youth movement in the secondary.
Roman, what's your score prediction?
34-24. I think it's the under. I think they're going to get up above 30 points. I think 24 points is good. I think a couple turnovers from Louisville is going to happen. I think we get more than 1 sack, a couple more tackles for loss this week. I think we could put them behind the chains, and it could. That's 34, and I want everybody to know 34-24 is a safe pick for me because if I see early, right, you got to go back to the Notre Dame game, the fabled Notre Dame game, right? When I saw how fast we came out that night, I looked at the guy behind me after the first drive, and this is truth. I looked at him, I'm like, you got no chance. Tonight, I just knew it early. I was like, you have no chance, because Miami came out very crazed, and I just noticed how much faster Miami looked, right, than Notre Dame. And I'm like, you got no chance. If now it's speed for speed, we're speed because they got Tutu. He's Miami speed. You're that's different, right?
Yes.
But the thing is, I'm going back to like my Vince Wilfork days. If I see the front 4 like basically dominating this offensive line and creating havoc and pressure without having to bring pressure, that's my key. If you want to go ahead and you want to confuse those guys on the back end, put more people back there. If you want to live in man 1, you're going to get slaughtered. You're not going to live in man 1. You're going to have to make them earn it. You're going to have to make them get creative. You're going to have to make them go in chunk yards, limit the big plays. But if our front 4, I could see it getting ugly. I could see it being a 17-point win for the Canes. It's
The
all
line-
going to come up to let's see how that defensive line in the first quarter, are they getting after it? Can they put some pressure on Cunningham? And if they can, I mean, my 34-24 is the safe pick, but I can very easily go 42-17 if I see the defense just getting completely crazy. They're bad. I'm telling you, their left tackle's bad.
Yeah.
He's bad. He's not good, right? Go back and watch this film. He's not good, and that's hard. That's hard to game plan around. Remember, Miami Hurricanes, we had some left tackle issues the year before, right? How did that work out for us? 6 and 7? You know, I just where they're weak, we're strong, and I think our defensive line has a chance to make a statement this week on primetime.
The key to me is the linebackers. I think the linebacker situation for us is going to be key because we talk about this big play ability for Louisville, but they're also one of the best teams in the country at outside zone running ability. So I think the linebackers need to be fast. They need to be able to make smart decisions. So that comes into play with a guy like Zach McLeod, who didn't have the best game last week, but you look at a guy like Jennings, this could be a possible game for guys like Avery Huff and Sam Brooks to get a little bit more playing time, use their speed a little bit more. I think it's sky's the limit for the team as long as the linebacker group can get it together.
Roman, before we let you go, because we got Elijah Roberts' mother waiting, Shanda Roberts coming in shortly. Roman, quick thoughts on Aaron McLaughlin. I saw his tape. I love the kid. I don't know why he let him go to NC State. I just want to hear your quick kind of 2 cents on him. I thought he's a hell of a quarterback.
Yeah, hell of a quarterback. I don't know how much more, you got the Jake Garcia like kind of rumors out there and so McLaughlin was one of the late McLaughlin's first play that he put on a tape, and any quarterbacks putting film together, any quarterbacks, this is advice. Put your best play first because that play was remarkable. Like I watched it like 3 times and my jaw hit the floor. I'm like just off the floor rolling, flicking it about 55, 60 to your opposite hand. That was impressive. I think I think NC State got a steal with Aaron McLaughlin. I really, really do.
Quarterback.
Yeah, I mean that I'm curious to see if they're going to go ahead, and that almost seems like the way that they're doing it lately. That would almost be like a UNC pick for a quarterback, right? Not NC State, because obviously their problems recently are heralded. So yeah, McLaughlin stud, NC State, you got a good one. I keep saying this. It's Jake Garcia until I see another 2021 materialize, and like, a new offer for the Miami Hurricanes just went out at quarterback. It hasn't. When it does, I'll know about it. But it hasn't. So it's still Jake Garcia or a bust. I don't mean to dodge the question on McLaughlin. I think he's a stud. He's very well coached. And that's one of the things you could tell. I could tell real early that kid's got a private quarterback coach. And I like that. I do. It's less headache for the college guy to try to work out some of these mechanical deficiencies. They're going to iron them out. Sure. There's always room for improvement. But I like the guys that come in, like you think Trevor Lawrence was bad mechanically coming in? Like he won the national championship as a freshman. If he was that bad mechanically, he wouldn't start. So I actually like these guys with private quarterback coaches. Means that they take it serious in their craft. So
and bad mechanics don't always mean everything, because I live in Gainesville and Tim Tebow had one of the worst mechanics, and he's one of the best college football players of all time.
Yeah, I real quick on that, because I know you have so. I remember Jaworski saying, "Tim Tebow, I love you. You can marry my daughter, but you can never be the quarterback of my NFL football team." It's exactly what he said. So I always remembered that, and that was true.
Roman, thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to come on, man. And best of luck with your YouTube channel. You're doing great things. Go check him out, Roman Marciante, YouTube channel, student of the game.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Roman. And make sure y'all go check out Orange Bowl Boys on all podcast platforms.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Bang.
See you. All right. Now we got Shanda Roberts.
Shanda.
Joe Williams.
Joe, what's up?
Hello, everybody.
How are y'all?
What's
going on?
Good seeing y'all. How's y'all's night going?
Going good.
Good to see y'all. It was good seeing you on the big screen against UAB, Miss Shanda. I saw you repping your son. For everybody watching, all Cane fans, we got 2 amazing. We got Joe. I think we're good now. All right. So we got 2 amazing people on with us. We got Mr. Joe Williams, and the wife, of course, right next to him, who are proud parents of Mr. Quentin Williams, number 90. And then we also got Miss Shanda Roberts here, who is a proud mother of Elijah Roberts, who's a number 99 from Christopher Columbus. It's a pleasure having both of y'all on. Thank y'all again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey guys,
Mr. Roberts is watching, but we're getting something done in the house, so he had to go step out for a second.
Okay, no worries.
Mr. Williams and Miss Roberts, kind of go over how was the recruiting process with the Miami coaches, and what were some factors that ultimately, your son for picking Miami?
You want me to go first?
Go ahead.
The recruiting process for us was, it was good. It was actually good. There was never a time where they fell off. Even when Elijah decommitted, they still showed much interest in him coming to the school, as we were also still interested in him going to the school. But people don't realize the recruiting process can be very stressful for young kids. They're young, and this is like one of the biggest decisions of their life. And even though they have people that are guiding them, which they will need, they definitely need strong guidance when making this decision. Ultimately, the decision is theirs. So it's a lot to have to deal with when you have all these people coming at you that want you and tell you how great you are, how awesome you are, and we have to have you here because you belong here and you fit here. And then you hang up, you got somebody else saying the same thing. It's a grueling process. And but ultimately he felt like he wanted to be there, he needed to be there. It's something that he said he felt, and I feel this is the best decision he could have made.
Joe, what about you?
Yeah, like Shonda said, man, the recruiting process was fantastic. I really think Quentin was really just waiting for Miami, to be quite honest. Like, we've been raised as Miami fans, so all the other schools that offered him okay. But when that Miami offer came, it was pretty much so it was real smooth.
Joe, what I want to ask you is, man, Quentin had teams like Louisville, Syracuse, Virginia Tech, West Virginia, and obviously they even had your hometown North Carolina come after you as well. Was there any crazy recruiting story or anything where like a recruiting fan or a team fan base did anything crazier to where you guys were like, man, this fan base is a little bit over the top?
Nah, I think all fan bases are crazy, man. As soon as you get the offer, the fan bases just come, and just start, with the stuff on Twitter and everything. North Carolina was active. Virginia Tech was active. I think all fan bases are crazy. There weren't too many crazy stories though. No, it was just, I think it was just normal, normal recruiting stuff.
Shanda, what about with you? We know Elijah had a bunch of offers with Miami. They even had Michigan with Coach Harbaugh. They had Florida State as well. Obviously he committed to Miami with Manny Diaz. Give me another coach that kind of stood out to you that you're like, you know what, man, I know we're from Miami and Miami's the place home, but this guy is kind of making us think twice about this. What was the coach that kind of stood out to you?
Miami fans are relentless.
Okay.
But they're also very supportive.
Yes.
And even when you having two Miami fans being, off the wall, you have 55 ready to attack them for being off the wall. So you have, I honestly didn't interact with anybody but Miami fans. I don't know if it just didn't follow my news feed or what, but 95% of the people in my news feed were Miami fans, just welcoming us and making sure, trying to make sure that if we felt some type of way, that it wasn't really that way. If they saw Miami fans go crazy, they're like, don't worry about that. When it's just 1% or whatever. So I will say Miami fans are off the chain, but you have a lot that are very supportive, and really just genuinely happy that we're here.
Absolutely, man. And we're super ecstatic that both of you, your sons decided to come to Miami. We're super happy, and I know y'all both are as well. Both of y'all ended up traveling to the UAB game. I was happy to see Joe at the game and the family. Shanda, I didn't get to see you in person, but I saw you on the jumbo when I was at the game. Tell us what it was like to finally seeing your kid run out on Hard Rock on that football field with the Miami Hurricane jersey and the Williams and the Roberts name on the back. How was that feeling? Let's start with you, Joe.
It was good. Q, if you guys noticed, he wasn't suited up.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit. All right, so I didn't know that he wasn't going to be suited up. So
okay. I was gonna ask you that. Or text you off air, but because I was curious about that. You drove a long way. I know.
We flew.
Are you flew? Yes.
I'm not driving that. I'm not making that drive.
Correct. I mean, I know y'all are diehard Hurricane fans, but I was expecting the same thing, dude. Was there a reason why, or like? Or we can't talk about it. If we can't talk about it, we're good.
Yeah, he had some he had some freshman pain,
Okay.
So
no worries.
But yeah, it was a little disappointing to say the least, But he did some freshman. I was just happy that he came out and he was on the team and he's on the depth chart and hopefully he takes care of his business and he'll be able to suit up and get on the field soon. So
for sure. Miss Roberts, what about you?
I did not expect to have the emotions that I did have. Because Elijah and his dad were talking maybe like a few days before. And we were kind of poking fun at his dad, telling his dad he's going to cry because my husband's been a Miami fan since forever and a day. So, but even that being said, he never pressured Elijah to pick Miami. But when he did pick Miami, honey, he was ecstatic. And so we were looking at him. So Elijah goes, Dad, you going to cry? And he's like, no, man, I'm not going to cry. I said, yes, Dad, he's going to cry. But guess who ended up crying? I did. I kind of left my husband. He was sitting. We were sitting up in toward the wall, and I went down so I can get video. And I went from screaming to crying in 2 seconds. I don't know what happened. I just right. I was so embarrassed of myself because I was screaming when that all came out. It's so exciting to see them come out, and then I saw 99 shoot by me, and I just bust out crying. But it was just
that's awesome.
Because I've seen, Elijah played football since he was a baby, and to see all of his hard work and all of the struggles he had to go through, just with either losing weight or maybe he was too big for the team, or he had to switch, whatever it was, to see him be able to run through that tunnel with that University of Miami uniform on, it was just something that I can't even explain. It was overwhelming.
For sure. I mean, I'm sure the journey, the whole process through it all. I mean, you guys are parents. You guys have been supportive and being there every step of the way. I mean, that gets into my next question. I want to ask Joe. Joe, when is what was that moment? I mean, I know with Quentin, he was a superstar in a lot of sports. He played basketball, he played football, he did other things. What was that moment where you kind of sat back at what age when you saw Quentin and you were like, whoa, he could actually go somewhere with football. He's gonna end up going to school full ride. End up going to the next level. What was that realization where you're like, this kid has something special?
Well, we started out. We were living in Kansas City, so I went to college in Kansas, and we were living in Kansas City. So Quentin was actually born in Kansas City.
Okay.
Probably, 2000 and. Probably his 8th grade year, me and my wife decided we were going to move. We had a couple of cities to pick from, and we chose Charlotte. She got a job at UNC Charlotte. And he just continued to grow. I saw him he was just growing. Like it was just crazy. Like he was in 8th grade. He was obviously one of the tallest kids in the class, and he just continued to grow. And I'm thinking, like, we're in Charlotte, we're in the Southeast region. This is a football region, the Carolinas, Georgia, Virginia, Florida, we're in the region for football.
Yep.
So as he continued to grow and started playing football, it just started to materialize from there. I figured probably around 9th, 10th, really around sophomore year, I was like, yeah, this can be something.
That's good. That's good to hear, man. I can't wait to see Quentin do amazing things, man. Shanda, what about you? I know with Elijah, he just came off of a state championship with Christopher Columbus, and now he's on the next level with Miami. At what age? I mean, I know down in South Florida, Pop Warner is huge when it comes to football. At what age did you see Elijah make some plays, whether it be Pop Warner, middle school, high school football, where you knew your son was going?
Well, let me just give y'all a disclaimer. I'm just learning football. So, okay. I don't know what he was doing back there. Okay. I was just out there cheering and screaming when my baby ran. I don't know what he was running for. When everybody else cheered, I cheered.
You just knew that they better hide their quarterback.
Right, exactly. So, he started playing for Goose Park.
Okay.
I think he was 10. I want to say he was 10 years old. What I did see was his excitement and his competitiveness and his emotions. That's what I saw. I don't know what he was doing on the field, but I know he'll be mad when something didn't go a certain way. I would see him hype up his teammates on the sideline. I would see him dapping them up. Like, that is what made me say, okay, this child is really serious about football. And when he would go do his homework, because I wouldn't let him go unless homework was done. So he would make sure he ran home, do his homework, do what he have to do. And also seeing him, because he was always a chunky kid. Elijah was 9 pounds, 9 ounces at birth. So when he played football, he had to, right, Joe. So when he played football, he always had to lose weight. And he would do that. He would get up, not complain. He would come wake us up. I got to go run. I got to go run before the game. Go and run. Without anyone making him do it, I knew this is what he wanted to do.
That's dope.
And you talk about the love and passion he has. I mean, a lot of people might not know, but you're a doctor as well. I mean, with this pandemic going on with COVID, I mean, this is a serious situation. And for you to have his support and have his back, and for him to still be able to play football, regardless if he wants to or not, with this whole COVID thing going on, that takes a lot of respect as well.
I'm not a medical doctor. I have a doctorate. I have an honorary doctorate degree because of the work I do in the community. I'm not a medical doctor. So I know what you know, child. But yes, you're correct.
Joe and Shanda, I got a question, because we all know, I mean, high school football conditioning compared to the college level is night and day. What were some kind of remarks, your sons would talk to you guys about, going into a college football conditioning program, for the first time?
Well, my son didn't listen to me, so he was working out, but not like he was supposed to be. He would go. We have an indoor facility out here called Ultimate Athlete, and he would go every morning. He would go get his work in. It'll be about an hour and a half, and that would really be it. He would do a little bit of extra stuff, but it wasn't the running that he was supposed to be doing.
Right.
And he was warned. Like when we came on the official, DJ Dallas sat there and said, the one thing you guys need to do is run. Run. I don't care what you do, just run. And he didn't really take heed to that. And when he got there, he realized that, yeah, he should have ran. So and that Miami Heat was real different from him, coming from North Carolina. So he got his lesson. He learned his lesson.
I want to ask both of y'all. Both of y'all are huge Hurricane fans as well. What were your thoughts on the game against UAB as a fan? I know we were talking more about as a Hurricane fan from a different point of view. What was y'all's thoughts on the UAB game from past years? What were your thoughts? Let's go with you first, Joe.
It was a good game. I mean, it was the first game of the year, so I didn't expect. I don't think I expected what probably the rest of the fans expected as far as a 60 to 10 game or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was the first game, new quarterback, pretty much the same personnel all around, but a new quarterback, a new offense. You know, that had to get. You have to break that in. No spring ball.
Yep.
You know, it's a lot for somebody who I played football all my life, so I know it takes a lot to get that cohesiveness, especially on offense. The defense played well to me. You know, they can definitely improve, but they played well. The running game looked fantastic.
Yeah, amazing.
You know, amazing. I love the running game. Passing game can get, but we were very vanilla on offense. So
right.
I know it'll be more, you know, we'll open up a little bit more as the season goes on. But I was satisfied, man. I just like the way they came out and they play hard. It's hard to play without fans, man. It's hard. I don't care what anybody says. It's hard to play when you don't have that fan base just, you know, right.
For sure.
They did a good job.
And if there's one fan that I heard in the Hard Rock, it's Miss Hodge, your quarterback over here. We heard her. Miss Palmer, what about you? What were your thoughts?
So that's not a question I can answer. I don't know. I don't know. I thought they did pretty good. I mean, I think my favorite play of the game was when Cam broke and did a touchdown. I was just overly excited. And I felt like, I don't know, like he was my child or something. I was just so excited to see, because it happened so fast. I really like that play. So I don't really know much. But I want to go back to Paul's question if I can about the running, since I don't know how to answer that question. So
go ahead.
Elijah has come to us like when we first started and talked about what Joe said about the running and about the workouts. They're definitely different, but I think by him coming from Columbus, he was already ready for that. And when the pandemic started, or when they had to do homeschool, immediately he was working out twice a day. And I was trying to stop him. I said, "Somebody arrest, you're doing too much." He said, I remember him telling me, "I can't stop, because if I stop, somebody else is working." He was like, "I can't stop." And his dad, at first he wasn't running, so his dad was like, "You need to start running." And I think someone else told him as well from UM that if you do nothing else, make sure you run. So he would run on the hill at Tropical Park. He would go sometimes twice a day because he would work out with his other teammates from Columbus. But their workout program is extraneous. So I believe that helped him prepare himself for UM. And so, but he did, even though with all that being said, he would talk about how hard it was and how tired he was. But he said, "Mom, I'm glad I didn't sit down and not do anything, because I'll be gassed. I'll be passed out." Yeah. So if kids coming into college, don't take it lightly. Don't run. And run, yes.
Paul, you got anything else for them?
No. Do you guys have any predictions for Miami versus Louisville Saturday night prime time?
Oh, we got this. That's all I know.
I think it's going to be a shootout, man. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I'm going to say like 42-31 or something like that, 42-24, something like that.
Okay.
We're going to the game, though. Our flight leaves in the morning.
Okay.
Really? Okay, nice.
I don't plan on missing any games. I plan on it, God willing. So
that is awesome right there.
But when they call 99, just know that his mama's gonna act a complete fool.
I love that. Before before we let y'all go, I want both of y'all to plug in a little bit of something y'all got going on. First with Joe, you got your own YouTube show with your wife Leisha. Tell the fans where they could find your YouTube channel, and you guys have a very cool relationship. I watched a couple of videos, and even though y'all are husband and wife, y'all seem like best friends. You know, y'all are able to attack things in different ways and kind of give your point of view on everyday situations. So go ahead and plug in your stuff with that, Joe.
I don't really like her like that, but you know, we gotta
Don't do her like that. That's my friend now. Don't do her like that.
Nah, man, we got the YouTube page definitely going on. It's called F It. You know, as we get older, you know, 2020, we got to keep moving and we got to keep going. And sometimes you got to say F it, man. So that's the YouTube page, and you can definitely go on YouTube and search F Star or just search Joe and Leisha.
Okay.
Leisha. She had to be difficult with the I in there.
Hey,
So Leisha, and it'll pop up. And I definitely post it all the time. So we got the YouTube page going on, and we're trying to video every Saturday, and maybe in the middle of the week we'll pop something up. So, but definitely every Saturday a video will be up.
Awesome. I love to sit here. And now with Mr. Robert, you got a couple things going on. You make your shirts, obviously, with the hide your quarterback. And then
Always busy. I don't know how to tell someone.
you also have a nonprofit organization called Purpose. Tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, Fred, you're going to make me cry that you knew that. I'm so
I
crybaby.
do my research. Don't worry. I got it.
One thing I am is a water bag. So if y'all ever see me crying, I'm not sad, I just cry all the time. So I am an advocate for domestic violence victims and survivors. I have a nonprofit because I am a survivor of domestic violence. It was happening when I was a teenager up until my adult years, right before I met my wonderful husband. We've been married 18 years now, Mr. George Roberts. I don't know where he is. He's somewhere in the house. So Pain to Purpose was because, like I said, I'm a survivor. So we have a lot of stuff going on. We feed the community. We take care of, we take victims that are in domestic violence shelters. We take them with purses stuffed with hygiene products. We put on events all year long, bringing awareness to teen dating violence, to domestic violence, to sexual abuse, whatever the case may be. Whatever we can do, we do. So that's what we're doing. And next month, we're going to have a big fundraiser. We were given September 28th as Pain to Purpose Day as a proclamation from Miami-Dade County. So we'll be doing an online celebration. We have our own day, September 28th.
Oh, that is amazing. And before we let y'all go, all Miami Hurricane fans that are watching, please make sure y'all follow both of these people right here on social media, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. These are two phenomenal people on and off the screen. Obviously, I mean, they bring the energy when it comes to Twitter, social media. I love both of these people like they're my own family. Y'all keep bringing the energy, and we appreciate everything y'all do for Canes fans.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on, and best of luck to both of your sons in their Miami Hurricanes career. I know they're going to do good.
Yes, sir. And I'll see both of y'all next weekend at the Hard Rock. All right.
Yes.
Sounds good, guys. Take care.
Yep.
Y'all have a good night.
Really?